The twin moons of Velhara glowed over the royal palace, casting silver light on the shining towers. The great halls were filled with murmurs, whispers, and the sound of alien nobles arguing. The Valeri Empire, once mighty among the stars, was slowly falling apart. Their fleets were losing to rebels, their trade routes were breaking, and fear spread like a storm. At the center of it all sat Queen Sarathia, ruler of 1,000 worlds. Her eyes, bright like molten gold, watched the holographic star map before her. Red lights marked the systems lost to rebellion. Each new flare was another wound to her empire. "The outer colonies are gone," said Admiral Zorro, bowing low. "The Dravok horde grows stronger every day. Our fleets are divided. The nobles fight among themselves. My queen, if we do not act now—" "I know," Sarathia said quietly. Her voice was calm, but her heart was heavy. "Our empire is dying not because of the Dravok, but because we have forgotten unity." Around her, the nobles shifted nervously. They didn't like hearing the truth. They blamed others, not themselves. Then the great doors opened and silence filled the room. A human walked in. He was tall but not towering, strong but not bulky. His steps were steady, his eyes calm. He wore a simple dark uniform with the emblem of Earth, a blue sphere surrounded by stars. His name was Captain Elias Ward, commander of the human expedition fleet. Many aliens had seen humans before, traders, explorers, or scientists, but never one standing before the throne of an empire. The Velari nobles whispered among themselves. "A human here?" one muttered. "This is madness," another sneered. "What can his kind offer us? They are still new to the stars." "They say humans live on a death world," a third whispered. "A violent place that makes monsters of men." But Queen Sarathia ignored them. Her gaze stayed on Elias. "Captain Ward," she said softly, "you stand before the throne of Velhara. Do you know why I summoned you?" Elias bowed slightly. "I believe you seek alliance, Your Majesty." "Alliance," one noble said with a scoff. "With a race that only recently learned to travel faster than light? Ridiculous." Elias didn't react. His expression stayed calm. Sometimes the newest voices see what the oldest ones ignore. That quiet answer silenced the hall. Sarathia smiled faintly. "You speak with courage. That is good. I need courage more than flattery." The Queen's empire was desperate. Decades of war had left them weak. She had sought alliances with other empires, but all had turned her away. Only the humans had sent help. Not armies, but medical aid, supplies, and words of goodwill. Humans had no empire, no great fleet, yet they always helped others. That had impressed her, and now she had made a decision no one expected. "I will unite the Velari and the humans," she said suddenly, standing from her throne. Her voice carried across the hall. "Through me." Gasps filled the room. Nobles rose in shock.
"You cannot!"
one shouted. "A queen marrying a human? It will ruin the royal bloodline!" But Sarathia raised a hand. "Our bloodline means nothing if our people are gone. I choose to bind our fates, to show the stars that strength comes not from pride but from unity." Her gaze turned to Elias. "Captain Ward, will you accept this bond? Will you stand beside me, not as a soldier but as my partner?" Elias looked around the hall. Hundreds of alien eyes stared at him, full of doubt and anger. He could feel their judgment. But his heart did not waver. He stepped forward, bowed deeply, and said, "I will." The hall erupted in chaos. Voices shouted in protest. Some nobles left in fury, their pride wounded. Others stayed silent, watching in disbelief. Later, in the quiet of the royal garden under the twin moons, Sarathia and Elias stood alone. The soft wind carried the scent of glowing flowers. The queen looked thoughtful. "You know what this means, don't you?" she said. "You will not be welcome among my court. They will call you weak. They will see you as unworthy." Elias smiled faintly. "I have been called worse." She looked at him curiously. "You humans, you hide your strength behind such calm words. Why is that?" He looked up at the stars. "Because strength means nothing if you have to prove it every day. True power stays silent and until it must act." For a long time the queen said nothing. She studied his face, wondering what kind of man could stand so calmly before an empire's judgment. There was no arrogance in him, no fear either, only quiet certainty. "I hope you are right, Elias Ward," she said finally, "because soon I will need that strength you speak of." Days passed and the news of the royal union spread across the galaxy. The queen who married a human became the talk of every world. Some mocked her, Others admired her courage. On Earth, humans were surprised but proud. One of their own had married a galactic monarch. But within the Villari court, unrest grew. In a secret meeting chamber, the noble houses gathered again. "She has lost her mind," said Lord Tyrex, slamming his clawed hand on the table. "She weds a primitive. Do you know what this will do to our image?" "She brings shame to the throne," another said. "A human cannot guide us through war. He will lead us to ruin." But among them, one older noble remained silent, General Koresh, a battle-worn veteran. Finally he spoke. "You fools. You call the humans weak because you fear what you do not understand. Their world kills the unprepared every day. Only the strongest of them survive. That makes them dangerous and valuable." His words silenced the room for a moment, but pride quickly drowned wisdom. The nobles decided to wait, to see how long the queen's strange marriage would last. Weeks later, the royal wedding took place in the Palace of Stars. Thousands watched through holoscreens across the empire. Sarathia wore a crown of radiant crystal, and Elias wore his dark navy uniform. Their hands met beneath the twin moons, and their vows echoed across the galaxy. "I stand with you," Elias said. "And I with you," Sarathia replied. At that moment, for the first time in centuries, the queen smiled with real hope. Yet even during the celebration, shadows moved in silence. Reports arrived from the frontier. Dravok warships had crossed the border again. The queen's admirals spoke of retreat, of surrendering more worlds. But when Elias heard the reports, he said quietly, "Then perhaps it's time humanity stands with you. Not in words, but in action." Sarathia looked at him unsure. "You would face the Dravok? You have no fleet strong enough for such a war." Elias only smiled. "You chose wisely, my queen. One day you'll see why." The queen did not understand what he meant, not yet. To her, he was still just a brave man from a distant world, loyal, calm, and gentle. She could not see the fire sleeping beneath that calm. For now, peace filled the night. The stars shimmered above, unaware that soon they would witness something that would change the galaxy, when the human she married would finally reveal his true strength. The Villari Empire was once proud, shining like a jewel in the stars. But now its light was fading. Fleets that had once ruled the void now drifted broken in space. Trade worlds fell one by one. The Dravok Horde, a ruthless alien race with ships like dark blades, cut through the Empire's borders without mercy. From the palace balcony, Queen Sarathia looked down at the capital below. The people still cheered her name, but their voices carried fear. They had begun to whisper that the end was coming. Behind her, footsteps echoed softly. It was Elias Ward, her human husband. He wore a simple black uniform and carried a datapad filled with reports. His face was calm as always, though his eyes were sharp. "Another world lost?" Sarathia asked quietly. Elias nodded. "3 more systems have fallen, my queen. The Dravok move faster than we expected." The queen's golden eyes dimmed. "Our admirals are blind. They rely too much on their old strategies. The Dravok fight differently each time." Elias hesitated, then said, "May I speak freely?" Sarathia turned to him. "You may." "Your empire fights like it did 1,000 years ago," Elias said. "Your ships are powerful but predictable. Your enemies know your every move. They cut through you because you do not change." The queen frowned slightly, not in anger, but in thought. "You speak boldly, Captain Ward." "I speak truth," he said. "Humans learned long ago that strength means nothing without adaptability. You must change or your empire will die." For a long moment there was silence. Then Sarathia sighed and walked toward the large star map. It showed hundreds of red marks, systems under attack or lost. "You may be right," she whispered. "But my council does not listen to me anymore. They blame me for marrying you. They call me weak." Elias looked at her gently. "They fear what they don't understand. They see your choice as weakness because they've never met humans before." "Then tell me," she said, looking at him with curiosity, "what are humans really like?" Elias thought for a moment. "We are survivors. Our homeworld is dangerous. Storms, earthquakes, predators. Everything tries to kill us. But we learn to fight back. Not with strength alone, but with ideas. We learn, we adapt, we endure." The queen listened in silence. There was something in his voice, not pride, but certainty. For the first time, she began to wonder if her choice had truly been a mistake, or a hidden blessing. That evening, the Royal Council gathered in the Hall of Stars. The walls glowed with blue light as the nobles argued among themselves. "The humans are useless," shouted Lord Tyrex. "This Captain Ward fills her mind with foolish ideas. We need to fight, not listen to some primitive soldier." Another noble agreed. "Yes, we should surrender the outer systems and fortify the core worlds." "Let the Dravok take the rest." Queen Sarathia raised a hand. The hall fell silent. "If we keep surrendering, we will have no worlds left. The Dravok will not stop. They devour all they touch." "Then what will you do, my queen?" sneered Tyrex. "Ask your human pet to save us?" The insult hung heavy in the air. Many nobles smirked. Some looked uneasy, but Elias did not react. He simply looked at the star map projected in the center of the room. After a moment, he said calmly, "If I may speak, Your Majesty." Sarathia nodded. "You may." Elias pointed at the map. "The Dravok's fleet moves in 3 lines. They strike your borders hard, forcing your main forces to respond. Then their smaller fleets sneak behind and cut off your supply routes. It's a trap," Admiral Zorro frowned. "We already know this." "Yes," Elias said. "But you react too slowly. You wait for their move before deciding yours. You fight their battle, not your own." The Queen leaned forward. "And what would you do differently?" "I would stop fighting where they expect," Elias said. "Let them think you are retreating. Draw them into a false victory. When they overextend, strike them from behind. Cut their fuel, their supplies, their command ships." The room grew silent. Even the proud nobles looked uncertain. The plan was daring and dangerous. "Impossible," one admiral said. "Our fleets are too scattered. We have no time to reorganize." Elias looked at the Queen. "Then give me 1 fleet." "I'll show you," the nobles laughed. "1 fleet? Against the Dravok?" Tyrex smirked. "Do you plan to scare them with human stories?" Elias did not answer. He simply stood straight, his calm eyes meeting the Queen's. Sarathia studied him. He was only one man, one human, standing in a hall full of ancient warriors and powerful aliens. Yet there was something unshakable in him, something the others lacked. Finally, she said, "You will have 1 fleet, Captain Ward." Gasps filled the hall. "Your Majesty, you cannot be serious," shouted Tyrex. "I am," Sarathia said firmly. "Give him command of the 5th battle group. Let him prove his worth." Elias bowed. "Thank you, my queen." The council ended in chaos. Some nobles stormed out. Others whispered about betrayal. But Sarathia stood her ground. Later that night, in her private chamber, the queen sat near the window watching the stars. Elias entered quietly. "You risk much for me," he said. She looked at him. "I risked more by doing nothing. If your plan fails, I will lose the fleet and the throne. But if you succeed," he nodded, "then we begin to turn the tide." For a moment they said nothing. Only the hum of the palace could be heard. Then Sarathia asked, "Tell me, Elias, why are you so calm? Even now when everyone doubts you?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because I've seen worse." "Worse than this war?" "Yes," he said softly. "On Earth we have no empires, no noble houses, just people fighting to live another day. When you've faced extinction every sunrise, fear loses its meaning." Sarathia looked into his eyes and saw no arrogance, only truth. He was not like the proud alien generals who shouted about honor. He was quiet, steady, unbreakable. "You speak like a man who has lost much," she said gently. "I have," Elias replied. "But I learned that loss teaches strength. It's not the strongest who survive. It's those who refuse to give up." The queen turned her gaze to the stars again. "Perhaps my people must learn that too." Days later, the 5th battle group prepared to leave the capital. It was a small fleet, only a handful of cruisers and escort ships. The alien admirals mocked it behind closed doors. "Let the human have his fun," they laughed. "He'll come back in pieces, and if he comes back at all." But Elias did not care. He worked silently, studying the alien ships, their weapons, their flaws. He reorganized crews, changed flight patterns, and rewired communication systems. The Valery officers grumbled but obeyed his calm orders. He introduced human training drills, fast, unpredictable, strange to the Valery. At first they failed miserably. But slowly the fleet began to move like one unit, sharper, quicker, smarter. Queen Sarathia watched from her command balcony as the fleet launched into the dark. The engines glowed blue as the ships disappeared into hyperspace. She whispered to herself, "Prove them wrong, Elias Ward." As the fleet entered the frontier system of Theros, they found silence. The world below was burning. The Dravok had already passed through. Only wreckage floated in space. Elias studied the readings. They were here. They'll be back soon. The Velari officers looked uneasy. What are your orders, Commander? Elias looked out at the stars. We wait, he said calmly. Let them come to us. The alien officers exchanged confused glances. Waiting against the Dravok? Madness. But the human captain's calm voice carried authority that silenced doubt. He turned to his crew. Prepare the traps. Activate decoy signals. Let's make them think we're running. The officers moved to obey. They didn't understand his plan, but something about his voice made them trust him, at least for now. Back on the capital world, Queen Sarathia stood before her throne, staring at the holomap that showed the 5th battle group's position. Her advisors warned her it was suicide. But deep inside, she felt something different, a strange, quiet hope. She remembered Elias's words, "True power stays silent until it must act." For the first time in years, the queen smiled faintly. "Show them, human," she whispered. "Show them what true strength looks like." The frontier system of Theros was quiet, too quiet. The debris of destroyed stations and shattered moons floated silently in the void. The small Velari 5th battle group hovered at the edge, waiting. For the alien officers, the silence was unbearable. Their training demanded action, not waiting. But Captain Elias Ward remained calm, eyes scanning the stars. "Commander," said Lieutenant Vale, a young Velari pilot, "we have no idea where the Dravok will strike next. Should we not engage?" Elias shook his head slowly. "Patience. They will reveal themselves soon. Let them think we are weak. That is where we will find our advantage." Vale frowned. "Weak? They outnumber us 5-1. If we wait, they can destroy us." Elias smiled faintly. "They think they are clever. We will make them overconfident. That is when we strike." The Velari officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had never seen a commander fight this way. In their experience, humans were small, fragile beings, untested in true space war. But the calm certainty in Elias's voice silenced their doubts, at least for now. Minutes later, the sensor array detected faint blips on the edge of the system. The Dravok were approaching. Their ships were dark, angular, and enormous. They moved in calculated formations, confident that the small Velari fleet would scatter in fear. Elias studied the blips on his datapad. "They are following standard formation," he muttered. "They expect us to retreat. That is good. We will use that." The officers leaned closer, trying to understand his plan. Elias outlined his strategy with simple words, showing the formations and positions on the holomap. "We will let them advance toward the debris field," he explained. "Their long-range weapons are strong, but their maneuverability is weak. We will divide their fleet into sections." Vale tilted her head. "And then what?" "Then," Elias said, "we hit from all sides. Kinetic torpedoes, decoy drones, and synchronized strikes. They will not know where to defend first." The officers stared at him. To them, the plan seemed reckless. Many shook their heads. But one thing was clear. Elias did not doubt himself. As the Dravok fleet entered the system, the 5th battle group moved slowly backward, retreating as if afraid. The aliens aboard the Velari ships whispered to one another. "This human, he has no sense of caution," muttered Admiral Zorro. "He will throw us all to the void." Elias remained calm. "Do not fire yet. Let them come closer. Watch their confidence. It is our ally." The Dravok, seeing only a small fleet that appeared to retreat, relaxed. Their ships moved deeper into the debris field, their weapons locked on the Velari vessels. The humans' decoy signals flickered, making some Dravok believe they had caught the Velari off guard, and then Elias gave the command. "Now." The Velari ships moved with precision, faster than any officer expected. Decoy drones darted between the enemy, confusing their sensors. Hidden human-built weapons on the cruisers activated, sending kinetic torpedoes streaking toward the unsuspecting Dravok ships. Explosions erupted in space, throwing debris in every direction. The Dravok were stunned. Their larger fleet had been split into sections. Confusion spread among their commanders. They could not predict where the next strike would come from. For the first time, a human-led fleet controlled the battlefield. From the capital, Queen Sarathia watched the battle unfold on her command screens. Her golden eyes widened as she saw the numbers. A small fleet commanded by her human husband, striking the Dravok with precision. Every move was calculated, every attack unexpected. She had known humans were clever, but this was beyond her imagination. She turned to Admiral Zorro, who stood beside her, jaw clenched. "What is he doing?" she asked. Zorro swallowed. I do not understand, my queen. He moves our ships like pieces on a starboard board. The Dravok cannot predict him." Sarathia's lips curved into a small smile. "He is showing me what he meant by hidden strength." Back at Theros, the battle raged. The Dravok regrouped, trying to fight back, but Elias anticipated their moves. His fleet was fast, coordinated, and unpredictable. Vehlari ships fired from unexpected angles, striking the enemy where they were weakest. Human tactics combined with Vehlari technology turned the small fleet into a force that seemed impossible. Lieutenant Viel watched in awe. "Commander, how did you know?" Elias glanced at her. "Observation and logic. Every enemy has patterns. Every fleet makes mistakes. Humans learn to exploit them. Even against numbers like theirs," she asked. "Especially against numbers like theirs," he replied. "Size is not everything. Precision, speed, and strategy can change everything." The Dravok fleet began to falter. Ships were destroyed faster than reinforcements could arrive. Their confidence broke. Panic spread through their lines. For the first time, they realized that the humans and their Vehlari allies were not easy prey. Hours later, the 5th battle group emerged victorious. The debris field was littered with Dravok wreckage. The surviving enemy ships retreated, badly damaged, leaving the frontier system in human and Vehlari control. For now, Vehlari officers stood silently on their command decks. Many had doubted Elias. Now they could not hide their awe. This human had achieved what they had thought impossible. Captain Elias walked through the fleet, quietly inspecting the ships and crews. He did not boast. He did not celebrate. He simply ensured that everything was in order, that his fleet was ready if the Dravok returned. Lieutenant Viel approached him, still wide-eyed. "Commander, you really are something else. We never expected—" Elias smiled gently. "Expect nothing. Observe everything. That is how humans survive." Meanwhile, Queen Sarathia received messages from the border worlds. The news spread like fire. A human-led Vehlari fleet had defeated a Dravok attack. The people cheered, hope returning to their hearts. Across the empire, whispers began. "The Queen's human. He is not weak." But even as celebrations began, Sarathia knew the war was far from over. The Dravok would strike again. They were relentless, brutal, and cunning. Yet now she had a secret weapon, a human whose mind and strategy could turn the tide of any battle. That night, the Queen walked along the palace balcony. Elias joined her, leaning on the railing. "You did not just win a battle," she said softly. "You changed the hearts of my people." He shrugged lightly. "A battle is only a start. True strength is shown over time. The Dravok will come again. We must be ready." Sarathia looked at him with admiration. "I feared marrying a human. I feared that you would be powerless in our wars, but now I see that your strength is not in your ships or your weapons. It is in your mind and your heart." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans survive because we must. We do not measure strength the way others do. We measure it by our willingness to act when it matters most." For a moment, the Queen said nothing. She felt awe, curiosity, and even fear. Fear of what other humans might be capable of if this one was only a glimpse. "Soon," she said finally, "the Dravok will come again. Are you ready?" He turned to her, calm as ever. "I have been ready all along." The next day, the Empire began preparations based on Elias's plan. Smaller fleets were reorganized, training became sharper, and new strategies were implemented. Some Vehlari officers resisted, still clinging to old methods, but most followed, slowly learning the human way, to think, to adapt, to survive. Queen Sarathia watched from her command center, proud and astonished. She whispered to herself, "I knew humans were strong, but I never imagined this." Elias stood beside her, scanning reports and holomaps. He did not celebrate. He did not boast. He simply prepared for the battles ahead, knowing that this was only the beginning of a long war. A war that would show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. And deep in the void, The Dravok waited, unaware that the humans they had underestimated would soon become their greatest threat. For the first time, the Queen understood. The human she had married was not just her partner. He was a force that could change the stars themselves. The stars over the broken sun system burned red. A dying star pulsed weakly, throwing waves of heat and light into the darkness. The wreckage of hundreds of ships floated through the void like ghosts. This was where the Dravok horde had destroyed 3 Velari fleets. Now, it was where Elias Ward had chosen to make his stand. The 5th battle group hovered in formation near the edge of the system. Their shields shimmered faintly against the heat. The alien officers aboard the flagship still whispered doubts. Many believed this would be their grave. Commander Vereen, a tall Velari officer with silver skin, turned to Elias. "The enemy outnumbers us 5-1. If we stay here, we'll die." Elias stood calmly, his hands behind his back. "If we run, we'll die slower, but we'll still die. The Dravok don't leave survivors." The alien commander frowned. "Then what's your plan, human?" Elias looked out through the observation window at the drifting wreckage. "We turn their fear against them." Hours later, the first Dravok ships appeared. Their dark hulls gleamed like obsidian blades. Each one carried weapons capable of burning a city to dust. Soon hundreds of them filled the void. A Dravok transmission echoed across all channels, a deep growl of mechanical sound. It was a challenge, a warning. The Velari officers panicked. "They're locking weapons," one shouted. "We must retreat." Elias remained still. "Hold your position. Do not fire until I say." The Queen's message appeared on the holo screen. Her golden eyes were filled with worry. "Elias, the Dravok fleet is massive. Pull back to safer ground." Elias looked at her calmly. "Trust me, Sarathia. This is what humans do best." The connection closed, leaving her with a heavy heart. She had trusted him once, and she would do so again. The Dravok opened fire first. Beams of green light cut through space. Explosions tore across the void. The Velari ships shook violently as their shields flared. The officers shouted, struggling to keep control. "Return fire," one yelled. "Not yet," Elias said quietly. He stood at the center of the bridge, calm as stone. "Hold formation." The enemy kept coming. The air trembled with each impact. The crew looked at him in disbelief. Was he mad? Waiting this long meant death. Finally, when the Dravok fleet entered a narrow corridor between 2 asteroid fields, Elias raised his hand. Now. Dozens of Velari ships unleashed their weapons at once. But it wasn't just a normal attack, and it was perfectly timed. The asteroids exploded in a chain reaction, scattering molten debris. The Dravok formation broke apart, their ships colliding and spinning wildly. Elias smiled faintly. "That's one." The officers stared at him, astonished. "You planned this?" He nodded. Humans learned to turn the battlefield itself into a weapon, but the Dravok were not finished. Their main fleet advanced, larger than before. Massive warships shaped like wings of iron emerged from hyperspace. Their energy signatures burned bright. They were preparing to destroy the entire system. Commander Vereen's voice shook. "They brought their dreadnoughts. We can't win against that." Elias walked to the control console. "You're right. Not by fighting fair." He activated a hidden command on his wrist device. Suddenly, several small human-made ships uncloaked from behind the Velari fleet. Sleek, fast, and unlike anything the aliens had ever seen, these were human voidcraft, armed with technology no one had shared before. The Velari officers gasped. "Those are your ships?" Elias nodded. "Human prototypes. We built them in secret with Earth's best minds. I brought them here for one purpose, to save your people." Before anyone could respond, the human ships shot forward, vanishing into the Dravok lines. They moved faster than the enemy's tracking systems could follow, firing concentrated plasma bursts that ripped through armor. Dravok ships began exploding one after another. "Impossible," Vereen whispered. "Those human ships move like living creatures." Elias's voice was calm. "They were designed by living minds that refused to accept limits." The battle raged on for hours. The Dravok fired everything they had. Their dreadnoughts sent waves of destruction across the void. Elias's fleet took heavy hits, but his plan never faltered. Every movement, every strike was precise. He ordered his ships to fall back, not in panic, but to draw the enemy deeper into a trap. Behind the drifting wrecks of dead fleets, Elias had placed charges, powerful energy cores from destroyed ships. When the Dravok reached the center of the field, he gave the command, "Detonate." The dark sky turned white. A wave of light erupted, tearing through hundreds of enemy vessels. The shock wave burned across the void, scattering the Dravok armada. The few survivors fled in chaos, leaving only silence behind. The Velari bridge fell quiet. No one spoke. Every officer, every soldier, every crew member just stared at the man who had done the impossible. Commander Varine's voice broke the silence. "The Dravok are retreating." Elias exhaled slowly. "Good. Let them carry the message home." He looked at the hollow screen where Queen Sarathia's image appeared again. Her eyes were wide in disbelief. Behind her, the council members watched in silence. "What? What did you do?" she asked softly. Elias replied, "What humans always do when the odds are against us, and we adapt. We fight smarter, not harder." News of the victory spread like fire. Across the Velari Empire, people cheered. The human commander became a legend overnight. Songs were sung, statues were built, and the once doubtful nobles now whispered his name with respect and fear. In the royal palace, Queen Sarathia called an emergency meeting of the High Council. The same nobles who had mocked her now bowed deeply as Elias entered the hall. Lord Tyrex spoke first, his voice trembling. "Captain Ward." "No, General Ward. You have saved us." "The Dravok fleet is gone." Elias shook his head. "They'll be back. Victory means nothing if we don't learn from it. The Dravok won't stop until they're destroyed, or until they fear us." The Queen stood from her throne. "Then let them fear us." The hall fell silent. Her voice carried strength again, strength that had been gone for years. "From this day, the Velari Empire and humanity stand together. Our fleets will be one. Our technology, our strength, our future, shared." Elias nodded. "Together, we'll build something the galaxy has never seen." Later that night, in the quiet royal garden, the Queen met Elias under the twin moons once again. The same place where they had first spoken months ago. The wind carried the soft sound of music from the city below. For the first time in years, the capital was celebrating. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "My people doubted you. Even I doubted you." Elias smiled faintly. "Doubt is natural. Humans doubt everything. It's how we find truth." The Queen looked at him for a long moment. "You fought as if you had done this 100 times before." "I've fought for survival all my life," he said. "But this time I wasn't fighting for myself. I was fighting for you, for your people." She lowered her gaze, touched by his words. "You've given them hope again." He looked at the stars. "Hope is the most powerful weapon we have." They stood in silence for a while. The Queen's golden eyes reflected the light of the moons. She finally spoke, her voice gentle. "You once told me that true power stays silent until it must act. Now I see what you meant." Elias turned to her and said quietly, "Now you know why humanity survived when so many others did not." The next morning, the galaxy awoke to a new era. The Dravok horde, once unstoppable, had suffered its first great defeat. The Velari fleets began rebuilding under human guidance. Joint research projects started between Earth and the Velari Empire. In every corner of the Empire, the story was the same. A single human had turned the tide. But deep inside his heart, Elias knew this was only the beginning. The Dravok would return stronger than before, and next time, they would face not one empire, but a united alliance led by a queen and her human consort. As the fleet prepared for future battles, Elias stood at the command bridge, watching the stars. Behind him, Queen Sarathia said softly, "You've given us a new dawn." Elias looked at her and answered with a calm smile, "No, my queen, you gave me a reason to fight for it." The galaxy had begun to change. The Dravok horde, once feared across 1,000 systems, had been forced into retreat. News of their defeat by a single human-led fleet spread like wildfire. Across the Velari Empire, whispers of admiration replaced the mocking voices of doubt. Humanity, once unknown and underestimated, had become a symbol of hope. Queen Sarathia stood on the balcony of her palace, gazing at the capital's shining lights. She felt the warmth of the twin moons on her skin, but her thoughts were with the fleets rebuilding in the frontier systems. Thousands of alien engineers worked alongside human technicians. Together they repaired damaged ships, upgraded weapons, and trained crews in new tactics. "Do you ever tire, Elias?" she asked softly, stepping beside him. He looked out at the horizon of distant stars, calm as ever. Tire, perhaps, but this is only the beginning. The galaxy will never stay still, and neither will we. Sarathia smiled faintly. It feels strange, seeing my empire so alive again, all because of one human, you. Elias shook his head. Not just me. Humanity, yes, but also your courage. You chose to trust what others doubted. That made the difference. The queen fell silent. Her people had seen a human's strength in battle, but what surprised her most was the way he inspired unity. He did not demand respect. He earned it through action, patience, and courage. Even the oldest nobles, once the loudest critics, now followed his advice without question. Weeks passed, and the Dravok remnants were scattered, but a few lingered in distant star systems, plotting revenge. Reports reached the Queen's Council. Small Dravok fleets had been detected moving toward the Velari border again. Panic rose in the hearts of many. Another war is coming, Lord Tyrex said, his voice trembling. Even your human cannot stop them all. Sarathia turned to Elias. What do you propose? He remained calm as always. We prepare not just to fight, but to unite. This time we will not rely on single fleets. We will combine Velari strength with human strategy. Our armies will become one. Faster, smarter, unstoppable. Tyrex scoffed. Do you really believe humans can lead our fleets? They are clever, yes, but we have centuries of war experience. Your human is different, but is he enough? Sarathia's golden eyes gleamed. He has already shown me that strength is not always what it seems. Sometimes the smallest hand can move the largest mountain. Elias added quietly, Let me show them the future. My queen. Let me show them what humanity can do when it works with a willing empire. Preparations began immediately. Human engineers brought new designs for ships and weapons. Alien fleets practiced formation drills they had never known before. Training sessions combined human ingenuity with Velari experience. At first, there were failures. Ships collided, signals were lost, crews grew frustrated. But Elias remained patient. Fail fast, learn faster, he would tell them. Mistakes are nothing if you use them to improve. The Velari were amazed. No one had ever taught them that failure could be a path to victory. Slowly, the fleets became more efficient, their attacks sharper, their coordination precise. By the time the Dravok tried to strike again, the humans and Velari were ready. The new battle took place near the Crimson Nebula, a colorful region of gas clouds and asteroids. Dravok scouts moved first, hoping to test the defenses, but every move they made was anticipated. Human-designed sensors detected hidden ships, while Velari vessels blocked possible escape routes. Elias commanded from the lead ship, calm as ever. Hold your fire. Let them think they have the advantage. Minutes passed. The Dravok advanced deeper, confident that the Velari would panic as before. But then Elias gave the order, attack. From behind the nebula, dozens of ships, human voidcraft and upgraded Velari cruisers, emerged simultaneously. They struck with precision, flanking the enemy from all sides. Traps detonated in the clouds, cutting off Dravok supply ships. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. The Dravok realized too late that the humans and Velari were no longer separate forces. They moved as one, anticipating attacks, predicting reactions, and adapting to every maneuver. The battle was fierce, but it ended quickly. The Dravok were defeated again, their fleet shattered. They retreated farther than before, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. After the battle, Queen Sarathia and Elias visited the front line. She walked among the crews, observing their faces. Velari soldiers now spoke of him with respect, calling him the human who commands without fear. A young Velari officer approached her, bowing deeply. Your Majesty, Captain Ward saved my ship, my crew, and my world. We owe him everything, Sarathia nodded. Yes, and not just my people, but all of you. He showed us that courage and intelligence together can overcome any enemy. She turned to Elias, who stood quietly, watching the soldiers. You've changed my empire, she said softly. I only helped you see the strength that was already here, he replied. The Velari are brave. They only needed guidance and a little human thinking. For the first time, she felt complete trust, not just in him, but in the future. Months passed. Trade routes reopened, borders were secured, and joint research projects flourished. Human and Velari engineers developed faster ships, stronger shields, and new energy weapons. The alliance grew beyond military strength. Elias and the Queen continued to work side by side, ruling and guiding. But they also learned from each other. Human ingenuity met Velari wisdom. Where one culture had gaps, the other filled them. Together, they created a system that no enemy could easily challenge. The galaxy watched, amazed. Other civilizations began sending envoys, seeking alliance with the Velari human coalition. Even planets that had once feared the Velari were curious, intrigued by the human who had transformed an entire empire. One evening, in the quiet of the royal garden, the Queen stood beside Elias once more. The twin moons shone above them, reflecting on the smooth pools of water. She finally spoke, her voice filled with awe. "Elias, when I first married you, I wondered if I had made a mistake. I thought humans were fragile, unprepared even, small." Elias smiled gently. "And now?" "Now," she said, "I see that true strength is not measured in size or numbers. It is measured in courage, intelligence, and heart. And you have all of these and more." He looked at her, his expression calm but warm. "We are not alone. Humanity survived because we never give up. Your empire survived because you never stopped believing. Together we've made something stronger than either alone." She placed a hand on his arm. "The galaxy will never forget this." "No," Elias said softly. "They will remember it because it will inspire them. Hope spreads faster than fear, and now both our peoples can build a future that no one can destroy." The Queen turned her gaze to the stars, her golden eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. "The Dravok will return," she said thoughtfully. Elias nodded. "Perhaps. But they will face not one empire, but two, united by courage, trust, and strength. They will learn what humans and Velari together can do." She smiled, finally understanding the depth of what he had done. He had not only saved her empire, but had shown a way to build something greater, something lasting. As the years passed, the story of Captain Elias Ward became legend. Children learned of the human who taught an alien empire to fight smarter, of the human who stood beside a queen and changed the course of history. Statues were built on Earth and Velari worlds alike. Songs and stories told of courage, intelligence, and unity. And through it all, the Queen and her human husband continued to lead, not with fear, not with domination, but with respect, trust, and shared vision. On the balcony of the palace, the Queen whispered softly, looking at Elias beside her. "You've given my people hope. You've given me a future." Elias smiled faintly. "We gave it to each other. That is how strength works, my Queen. Not alone, but together." Above them, the stars shimmered in silence. Two civilizations, once distant, now united, watched the galaxy. And for the first time in centuries, the future seemed limitless. The human who had once seemed small had revealed his true strength. Not only had he saved an empire, he had reshaped the galaxy, and the alien Queen, once doubtful, now knew that the greatest power in the universe sometimes came in the quietest form, the human heart.